This is going to be very breathy, and music is playing in the background, and it sounds pretty bad. The quality is pretty bad of the audio, so I'm really sorry and apologize, but I really do think that this is very important, so I'm going to share it.
Why we shouldn't be butchered down to our genders. So, basically, this is talking about the language that a lot of people use, unintentionally or intentionally, with transphobic intentions or without, calling us transgenders or saying a transgender is basically butchering us down to being trans and not being a human. So it's like we are humans and that are trans. We aren't just trans. We are all still humans. And I feel like that's a lot of things people with transphobic intentions forget. But it's important to know that we are still human no matter our gender. And I understand that a point of view from this could be that you call men and women men and women and not a woman person or like a female person or a male person. And that's not the same, because if you were to use that as an argument, then you could do the same thing to a trans person, a binary trans person, or non-binary. You could be like, this is a woman, they're a trans woman. This is a man, they're a trans man. And that would be way better than calling them a transgender or a trans. Because again, that's just butchering us down to the term trans, which is not all we are, obviously, because we are still people in the end. So you would call, obviously you would call cis people men and women, girls and boys, without putting person after that. But again, that is not the same as calling a trans person a trans or a transgender, because it is you're not calling us by our gender, you're calling us by the fact that we are trans, that we were born in the wrong body, that we were born a girl or a boy and we aren't. You're calling that fact out instead of just saying the fact that we are a girl, a boy, or non-binary gender. Which is just like, it's very transphobic if the person has transphobic intentions. Obviously, hatred is taught, so if a person were to accidentally slip up and say something like that, I would most definitely forgive them, because I would just remind them, like I just did, like just gently remind them that that language is offensive and that we would much rather prefer to be called a trans person or a person that happens to be trans, if that is relevant in the context of the situation. If it is not, then just call them by their gender if you prefer to gender them, or if not, just say a person. And of course, it can be relevant in some places if you're talking about that person being trans. Obviously, you would have to mention the fact that they are trans. So, but in which case you would not say, this is a transgender, or I would love to meet a transgender, because it's just a word that we happen to be, and it isn't polite to call someone something that is not defining of who they are. Like, us being trans does not define us as human beings. The only thing that does that, the only word that defines us in reality is humans, because we are all humans. But of course, we can't just talk about each other with, like, human people, because it gets repetitive and people don't like doing that. So I would understand talking about people based on gender, like, this is this woman or this man. But it's still, in that case, you would not refer to them as this transgender, that transgender, because it doesn't define us. And what would define us other than the label of our transitions would be, what we transitioned into, so our gender, just like any cis person.
By what we transitioned into, I mean that it's who we are and who we always have been, but now society views us correctly if we've transitioned either socially or medically or anyhow we would like to.
Girl, boy, NB/non-binary. I would most likely refer to a non-binary person as a person instead of a girl or a boy or non-binary, because some people don't know what non-binary is, so I would just say a person.
I would obviously never refer to a non-binary person as girl or boy if they would not prefer that.
And, it would be outing them either way.
It would be outing them because, well, they aren't cis-identifying, and that is obvious by calling them non-binary, whereas a trans-binary person, if you called them a boy or a girl or man or woman, and people didn't know they were trans, that would not be outing them because they would just expect them to be cis.
So yeah. Language like that is obviously, if you are coming from a good place, or if you do not come with transphobic intentions and you happen to say that language because that's all you've been exposed to, or that's what you thought was right to call us, or you might have just experienced someone calling another person that and you thought that was a normal term, just know that it isn't, and it is offensive, but I will forgive you because you are not coming from transphobic intentions if that is the case, and you obviously just need a little reminding or a little information on that topic, and that's what I'm here for. So just a little gentle nudge and then you're good, and obviously if I do that, then that's the reason why, and your reaction is just the outcome of that situation, and I will understand where you're coming from based on that. So yeah, I really do hope this helped clear things up a little bit. It's interesting to think about, because again, words do not define us, and the only word that I would say that really does define us is being human, like I said, because that is what we all are. And again, just making it seem calling people out by their identity or what they happen to be makes it seem like they aren't as human as someone who you would typically just refer to as a person. It would be extremely offensive and, in some contexts, racist to call a African American or black person a black, because again, that just does not sound right, and it sounds awful and extremely rude because you're just butchering them down to their race, which isn't even their choice. Just like being trans or being anything isn't a choice. Even being human isn't a choice, but it is, of course, what we all are. And so, butchering someone down to what they happen to be isn't okay. And it really needs to be talked about more because I feel like way too many people do that a lot. In any situation, just... And my friend mentioned this really nice fact that I really do agree with. It's that we shouldn't call someone by what they happen to be first rather than a person, because in the order it just makes it seem like, they aren't as human even if you put person in there. So like saying a black person or a gay person instead of a person who happens to be black, a person who is black, a person who happens to be gay, a person who is gay. And just sounds much better because you're putting person first, which is what we should always do. We should always put the fact that everyone is human before we bring out our phobias and our racism. It's like, why think about what they happen to be before what they are? And what we all are is just human. And I think when you first meet a person, you shouldn't be thinking about anything like their race in a negative way, anything, their race, their sex or gender based on appearance, their sexual orientation. You shouldn't be thinking about that when you first meet someone, unless it's relevant somehow, or you shouldn't be thinking about that in a negative way, because you should just be thinking about the fact that they are human. And that's all they should be to you, because in life, in your mind, a person is a person no matter what. That should be the truth for everyone. And so, of course, in some places, in some contexts, these things matter, like who a person is and what they are truly does matter, of course. But just the fact that we are all human should always, always come first, because it is the thing that matters most. I love the Dr. Seuss quote, "A person's a person no matter how small," because I think it can be related back to mostly everything. And it makes you feel small, but it also makes you feel important. Because you know that is true. What he's saying is true. A person's a person no matter anything. A person's a person first. I just think that that's a really nice thought to think. And if someone doesn't see you as human, then that's their fault, and they should think themselves less human because of that. If you don't see everyone as equal or as human beings, then you are not as much of a human as you think you are. We're all living, and we all only have this time, these lives to live, so why fill them with hate when you can fill them with love? Because it really is simple to love someone, to love everyone. And things we cannot control should not be the wall that stops love. And if there is a wall, we should all find a way to fly over it, because that's a really important thing, that love is really important, because it keeps us together, and without it, we are falling apart. Without love, we are falling apart, and with hate, we are becoming more and more broken until we're in a million pieces, and we can never pick up a million pieces. And even if we could, we would spend our whole lives doing it, which is not how anyone would want to live. To love is a choice. Not who you love, but to love, and to hate. Hate is taught. Love is learned, and it's easy. It's easy to love. It may not seem easy, and I'm not talking about relationships or anything individual. I'm talking about love as a whole. Just, you don't have to personally know someone to love them. Just know that all humans are human, and each human deserves love. Okay, this was a bit of a rant, and I'm sorry, but I had to talk about it. It became more than it was intentioned to be, but I think that that's a good thing. When you become more than you were intended to become, it's like you are going past this wall. And I think that's really empowering. If you're lacking love, piece together bits and pieces of memories and words to form something that could be turned into love. And cultivate kindness, y'all. Because kindness matters, and people matter, and everyone matters. And I think that's the main underlying point here. Everyone matters. Everyone matters, and it doesn't matter who you are. Because we're all humans, we're all beings, we're all living. We're all deserving of love. And none of us are deserving of hate unless we are hate ourselves. I have another quote from an artist that I really like. Aurora goes, "When feelings are heavy, they become all we are." That's why I said that if a person is hate, then, well, they aren't as deserving of love as a person who isn't hate. Because when someone is hateful, they become hate themselves.
They embody the spirit of hatred.
And hate is a bad thing to be. But in terms of general identities or feelings, then that is the only thing that is bad to be. But it is really good to be loved, and to be loved, and to be loving. So just take that with you when you walk, when you run, when you sit, when you sleep. You deserve it. I love you, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. And you are beautiful, and you are so loved and deserving of it. I hope this helped. Have an amazing day or night. Goodbye.